When did you realize you weren't a child anymore? When I realized that just because I have the money for a thing it doesn't mean I can afford it. Couple years ago, in our late 20s, my friends were telling me to buy some semi-expensive item. I can't even remember what, but they knew I could afford it. I hit them with just because you can buy something doesn't mean you should. They reacted like I was Confucius. When I could finally stay up as long as I wanted to and all I wanted to do was go to sleep at 8 PM. When I was 21, I had to get my wisdom teeth out. Went to the surgeon and he said it will cost $700 if you just get local numbing and $1,800 if you want to be knocked out. I thought to myself, well, I have no insurance so guess I'm gonna be awake for this one. I felt the doctor rip 3 teeth from my skull. Went downstairs where I then paid another $100 for drugs. Went home, went to bed, woke up to discover I had drooled blood all over my pillow, and in the moment I realized I was the one that had to clean it up. The distinct thought in my head was I'm a grown up. 22nd birthday, got home from work, no one was home, no cake or balloons waiting, no family waiting with a birthday dinner. I just walked to Papa Murphy's, got my favorite pizza, walked home, and ate alone. I grew up in a big family. 5 older siblings, aunts and uncles always over. It was the first time I was just alone on my birthday. I was alone on my birthday for the first time this year. When an adult tried to make small talk about the weather with me, I realized I was an adult when I caught myself making small talk about the weather. One day I woke up and I was married and had a mortgage. Not sure when all that happened. In the middle of the night, apparently. When people I meet started to take me way too serious. I have to be careful who I'm sarcastic around because people are way too serious. When I started taking care of my family or friends. When you're a kid, you're so used of being taken care of. Agreed. For me it was when I realized I didn't have to go to church ever again if I didn't want to. When I realized I could eat Nutella for dinner and no one would say a word. The best part about being an adult is you can eat an entire jar of Nutella and nobody can stop you. The worst part about being an adult is you can eat an entire jar of Nutella and nobody is there to stop you. When I realized that I am going bald already, at least I have no problem growing a non-patchy beard, so I became the typical bald guy with a beard. I am bald and a patchy beard so I gotta rock the goatee. I had graduated university, had a place of my own and a job, and was out doing some shopping. It occurred to me that I could and probably should just go ahead and buy some beer and some cookies, not for any kind of event or occasion, but just so I have them in stock at home. I wasn't planning to go home and drink 10 beers and eat a bag of cookies. I didn't even want either of them that day. I was just living a normal life and thought it would be good to have that stuff in stock. This is so true. Just keeping a few bottles of wine at home even though you probably won't drink them in the next few days and don't crave to either, but just get them to avoid hassle. When I asked for a Swiffer wet jet as a birthday present. You know you're getting old when the candles cost more than the cake. 27 and still not sure. 32 and still a kid. Now, kids, your uncle is building a fort for himself out of cushions. Maybe he'll let you in if you ask. When I had financial freedom from my parents and began to struggle, that crap hits you like a brick wall. I thought I was independent when I was in college. I worked dang near full time all the way through school, had plenty of disposable income. When I got my first job and the lifeline was truly cut, it hit me like an uppercut to the chin. Car insurance, groceries, rent that isn't for a crappy college apartment. It wasn't easy for the first couple years. When I moved my bed to the middle of the room, instead of the corner, I still miss folding myself into the crack by the wall. At 22 after my family passed away, I went from being a college student worrying about finals to suddenly making end-of-life care decisions and being the executor of their combined estate. I definitely struggled through the first few years but things really started to click when I turned 25. Because of my experience handling my family's estate and learning how to manage assets, I turned out to be a pretty decent investor and ultimately found a career in finance BC of it. For me it was when my mom passed away when I was 23 and my dad had already died when I was 6. But no extended family and no combined estate. Lol. When bedtime becomes a luxury, not a chore. This reminds me of a quote I heard a long time ago. The definition of success is a peaceful, full night's rest. I didn't appreciate it when I was younger because I could sleep so easily back then. I had a pulmonary embolism at 21. I sat in the waiting room for 12 hours because they didn't realize what it was at first. Then they began asking me for my social security number and all of this other information and trying to convince me to pay for my service now so I could save 25% off my total bill. Meanwhile I'm sitting here not being able to breathe and feeling woozy and in a lot of pain. I had just gotten out of school and was working part-time, and after this pulmonary embolism I wasn't able to work for a few months. A month of that was spent in the hospital, but that didn't stop them from coming after me. I did everything I could to pay off my bill. Eventually I did. So imagine my surprise when I had a police officer show up at my work and serve me. That's when I found out that hospitals have different departments that charge you separately. So while I paid off the radiology department, the physician's bill wasn't paid and as such they sued me. I think that's when I fully realized that I was an adult and that the world was full of adults whose sole purpose in life was to pull money out of my wallet. When I was 13 I found an old box. I realized I hadn't played pretend in ages, so for the heck of it I sat down in the box and tried to see if I still could. I realized that while I was still an imaginative person, I could no longer see the scenarios and stories I used to play act in my head as a kid. When I pretended to be a princess, goddammit it I could practically see the marble halls and unicorns around me. I couldn't anymore. Made me cry, haha. TBH, I keep having such moments. I mean, I'm all grown up, married and mom of 3 kids, but from time to time something comes along reminding me I'm not a kid anymore. And not just the big ones like buying our first house or a new car, but simple things like making my son's breakfast, and realizing now I'm the big one, or going grocery shopping and being able to buy whatever I want, and then not doing so cause it's the adult thing to do. Dropped my keys in a grocery store and a little girl scurried over before I could pick them up. She looked proud as punch for saving me from picking something up that was way down there on the floor. I wanted to hug her and smack her at the same time. It's official. I'm old now. Nope. Old is when you drop something and look around to see if you can pick anything else up while you are down there. You have a ways to go yet. When I realized that it costs money just to exist. I had recently moved into my first apartment and just loaded up on groceries at the store. Checked the mail when I got home and discovered my first water and electric gas bills. I remember thinking it is going to cost me money to exist for the rest of my life. Yup, now I understand my dad yelling at me for leaving all the house lights on during the day. When a little girl walked past me and said to her mother, "I like that lady's scarf." Lady? Finally, at probably the age of 20 or so, being able to get myself to eat okay food and have a semi-normal sleeping schedule and be able to complete basic tasks of life. Finally, now, I thought I was no longer a child, probably around 15, when I decided I knew all the real secrets of life and humanity, largely due to a single reading and total misinterpretation of Camus the Stranger. But then I went to college, almost at the age of majority and voting, and I realized I could not function on my own for even the smallest things in life. I couldn't do my homework on time. I couldn't get to sleep at a decent hour and get enough sleep to function the next day. I was eating horrible food that was horrible for me. I think there were days where I ate nothing but sugared cereal, ramen, and cookie dough. Many days, I could not figure out how to get through day-to-day life and still be able to do my own laundry. It would pile up so much and stress me out to the point where I started having sort of magical thinking that if I didn't put the worn clothes in the laundry bag basket hamper and just let them air out, they would be okay to wear in a day or two. I'm serious. I could not even eat or sleep in a way that allowed me to function as a human without the guidance of my parents, who were very hands-off to begin with. I went off to college convinced I was basically an adult. Once I got there I realized I was basically an infant. Edit. For those asking how I am doing now. Thanks, I'm more than fine. This was a long time ago and I am many jobs and graduate degrees into my life and a fully functional adult with a family of my own. For those asking how I got out of that mess, I finally realized around my junior year that maybe I should be focused more on studying at school than socializing. I moved out of the dorms that enabled all that bad behavior and moved into a house with roommates, laundry, and a real kitchen. I focused on my schoolwork and the sleep schedule that would be better for that rather than chasing fear of missing out all the time. I socialized with the time I had left over and it was plenty. I liked school much more and felt like I was getting my money's worth. I stopped being so depressed because of lack of sleep, crappy food, and living in the dark playground of procrastination all the time. First year out of your parents' house is basically extended potty training. First year on full-time job is a bit similar, too. I got the flu and vomited all over my room. I knew I was no longer a child when I was also the one to clean it despite feeling like heck. Edit. Thanks for the silver kind stranger. Look at my comment, all shiny. Edit 2. Also I am really enjoying all the vomit stories coming straight to my replies box. Keep them coming. They range from sweet to hilarious. This reminds me of when I was young. I felt like crap, grabbed a trash can, and went to my parents' room to tell them I was sick. Almost immediately I vomited into the can and they sprung out of bed like the house was on fire. The second they realized I puked into a bin, they told me to flush it down the toilet and got back in bed. When being ill became an annoyance. As a kid, you get pampered by your parents and get to stay home from school. As an adult, the responsibilities you have don't magically go away anymore, so you're both miserable and stressed out. When I was a little kid I used to have this weird ideology that everyone was born with a spark and that they just lost it when they became sad boring teens adults. But if you didn't lose it you'd gain superpowers. And I really wanted those superpowers, so every night I'd always do a mental check making sure my spark was still there so I could become the chosen one. Fast forward a few years and I'm laughing with my friends about how stupid the whole thing was and pretty much went, yeah, my spark died a long time ago. Wait a minute. Looking back it was probably just a coping mechanism for me trying to cling on to my childhood innocence. Oh my god, I almost cried. I remember it clearly. I had just moved into my first apartment 1,000 miles from my hometown alone. Got everything moved in and set up. Didn't have much then. A bed, a TV, a couch, that was pretty much it. I had a rough day at work. Lots of complaining customers and led me to talk to your supervisor moments and I was exhausted and emotionally drained. I opened the door to my apartment and there was silence. No noise from siblings. No parents sitting on the couch watching TV. No friends waiting to hang out. Just the oppressing silence of an empty apartment with nothing on the walls. The kind of silence that echoes when you sigh. I stood in my doorway and had the realization that I'm alone in a big city with no support system, friends, or family to help me if things don't work out. It was a lot to take in all at once. I completely understand. I dreaded the annoying noises when I lived with family, but it's noticeably gone and missed once you move out. My car stopped working and I had a friend come, but all I truly wanted was for both my parents to come get me. My grandfather came and spent 2 hours out of his day to get my car running perfect again. Never felt more grateful for my family in my life. When I realized the adults in my life has no idea of what they were doing, they were just winging it. That hit me like a baseball bat when I realized that adults are not adult because they now know what they are doing. Rather because their parents' generation decided to not put up with their kids' crap anymore because they're 18 and good luck with that. The day my father died, I was 39 years old. Up until that point, I had been an adult child. I was living with him. Got fired from every job I held for stupid I don't want to work crap. And eventually stopped looking for work altogether. Even when dad got terminally ill and I was the only one to take care of him, I was still acting like a child, expecting him to get better and everything returns to the status quo. Then he passed. Social security and long-term disability stopped. I had no job, and all that was left was about 3 months rent. This is how I became a Walmart drone for 3 years, but that's a story for another sub. When I realized life isn't about me anymore. I went to the doctor and realized they were younger than me. My first interview out of uni, about 2 weeks after I handed in my final essay piece. 5 hours drive up past Manchester. Had the interview that went well. Got the job it turned out, in my 1986 Peugeot 205, wearing a suit that was just a bit too big for me as it was old and I had lost weight. Just about to turn 21, so was 20. Stood in line at a service station paying for fuel, and it was the first time someone said so to me. "Just the fuel today, sir." "Yes, thanks." As I walked away, I remember clearly thinking, wow, I guess I am a sinner now. The first time I called my parents with a problem I needed help with and they just gave me an, "Oh, that sucks. Talk to you later." This is so sad. I'm 22 and I still call my dad sometimes to ask for advice. He says he's always willing to give advice when I need it as long as he's still alive. My mom told me she couldn't call to make appointments for me anymore or handle my medical legal business since I'm too old. Fricked me up. Was so confused since I was coddled for way too long. Almost 21 and still learning how to make professional phone calls. Template for professional phone messages. "Hi, this is," insert first and last name. "I am calling because," insert reason for call. "Please call me back at your earliest convenience. My phone number is," rhythm is important here, "blank blank blank, pause, blank 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 blank. Again this is," repeat from, "to, thank you, goodbye." I haven't. I'm still in denial. When I saw my first paycheck and how much I'd been taxed. I paid more in taxes last year than I used to make in a year. One of those bittersweet occurrences. Innocence is lost as soon as you understand what innocence means. You recognize happiness at the noise it makes when it leaves. What do you mean? Are you implying that I'm not a child anymore? I'm clearly still a child, and if you don't believe me, ask my wife. She'll back me up on this. Thank you. Thank you, kind strangers. I am honored by your kindness. Do you know anywhere Reddit coins can be used to purchase Legos? I'm gonna set the grandkids on OP unless they take that back. First time I had to make my own dentist appointment. Sounds stupid, but I credit my mom for forcing me to do it on my own once I could drive myself there. I've heard way too many stories of people who just stopped making routine doctor's appointments after their parents stopped making them. When the food we have at home sounds better than going out. I'm 15 and this comment section is scaring the crap out of me. No need to be. Just take it as good advice and be forewarned of what's coming. Adulthood is, generally speaking, great. There are new freedoms and new opportunities that weren't available before. There are just many more responsibilities that many of us didn't see coming. I wasn't truly aware of what was coming in adulthood, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. The minute you realize your parents are fallible, your childhood is over. Yeah, that made my 4th year of life my first adult year of life then. Got socks and underwear for Christmas and was happy. Oh sweet, I needed some new pairs. When the veil is lifted and you realize your parents are not as great as you thought they were. In my experience, it wasn't realizing that my parents aren't perfect. Every teenager does that. It was when I got a little older and realized I could still love them in spite of our disagreements. When I started to openly disagree and argue with my parents about my own freedoms, I started to realize that I may have more power than them, or at the very least be an equal. I have a whole life ahead of me that I want to get started on. Let me go. Totally agree. When I turned 18, my mom said I can't make you do anything anymore, and it really clicked for me that I was free to live as I please and make my own life decisions. We definitely had a rough adjustment period starting at the time I got my license and wanted to go out as I pleased without her. We got through it and now have a great relationship. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.